I think, again, we can say to what you, Helmut, have said, what a wonderful way of learning many great ideas. And again, I told you a little bit about him with UNHCR, but of course, ICRC is an organization which is as involved, admittedly a little more easily to manage because it's still Swiss-based, but it's there where the action is, the negative actions. If you agree with me, I would like to now go with everybody. We have half an hour, and we can brutally extend that by 10 minutes, if you like. Go into them. I have a number of questions, not too many, so please follow up. Don't take it seriously what I said about no questions, please. On the contrary. And I would suggest we first quiz you, Helmut, and then we continue with quizzing you.
Sure.
Is that okay, René?
Absolutely.
Right. I give my own points. And at the very end, by the way, Holger comes up. That's the fourth then at the end. Not now. Would be too much honor for AmCham. No, sorry. And he will talk about what a thing which they plan to do, which might be very interesting for all of you. I like especially, Helmut, your analysis of the situation in which your work has especially been in, and that is the work in the third world. And the mango field is a very good example because, well, the third world provides our great mangoes at Ralph's and Gelson's, and we love it, but we forget often totally under what conditions the mangoes are ripe, and that left over for the locals is quite something. In this environment, and now I share with you how we diplomats are trained from a point of view, understanding people from the third world better. It might come under tools in your system, and that is, we learn that there are basically two types of societies. Ours, I would say the Nordic society, which in a sense also includes the United States, I think, and the southern societies. The northern societies, and it all has to do with time, chronos. The northern societies, they are monochrome, not chrome, but N, North Pole at the end. And the southern societies are polychrome, N. This is a horrible simplification of things, but on the average, it often hits the point. The monochrome societies, they go along a line, a timeline. We meet at 9, and we start at 9:10, and then at 9:15, Bernd Fischer starts, and so on and so on. The polychrome societies say, well, we might meet at 9, but if the coffee is really good, we may meet at 9:20. And then if Bernd Fischer cannot stop talking when he should after 20 minutes, well, let him continue. That was a polychrome activity. And then if René continued the same line, well, we'll have him in after the break. That is polychrome, but it's against the monochrome rules of life. Zack. Monochrome behavior is the behavior which is the rule in Western societies. And one can say our success in many areas, except preventing ulcers and stuff, is the consequence of monochrome behavior. We say, tomorrow at 10 o'clock we have a meeting. And then we have the meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock, maybe a few minutes. The polychrome society says, well, we'll see. We'll start with 4 or 5 poly. ideas, and then at the end we see what comes out of it. When the worst is when a monochrome diplomat, like me, meets a polychrome counterpart. Oh, you never know where your monochrome line meets with him. And if you don't know about it, you go berserk, you're mad at the guy. You think he's inflexible and all of that. No, it's a different approach, and you have to know it. That's why I mentioned that to you. Monochrome societies are bad at software. That's where the polychrome societies come in. You have to be thinking. Why? And forgive me, you may be Indian of origin, sir. If somebody is from Indian origin or so, that's a typical polychrome society. They are such fantastic software people for the very reason they are creative thinking. We are more the hardware people. So I just wanted to mention that because many of the conflicts which exist in the third world, between us and the third world, even in that mango field, is when the monochronists come in and dominate the polychronists and wonder why the polychronists don't behave the way the monochronists behave. Because it's all lifelong, it has been like this. Still, our society becomes more and more monochrome, and one reason for that is what Tom is having in front of him. It's the computer. The computer forces people to be monochrome. And so I wanted just to share that. I want to share you a second point, and then we go into the questions for you. And that is, when we start in the German Foreign Service, our bosses in the training school tell us, you are now going into your job with your colleagues and I don't know the English word for that. In the old times, people walked around advertising movies with a plate in front and a plate on the back. You know what I'm talking about?
Sandwich board.
Sandwich board, thank you so much. I have to remember that. The sandwich board. And that sandwich board is on you all your life. And everybody of your colleagues, there's a piece of chalk on it, on a string. Everybody can come without you seeing, write something up on you. So your reputation is building lazy guy, unfriendly guy, or nice guy. And you don't know. Because you can't. Even it's a situation where there would be no mirrors, admittedly. So at the very end, you have so much load in there, and often it's negative because people don't bother to write down positive things. Good news are no news, also in people's relations. So there's a lot of information about you, or opinion, I should say, and you don't even know. And that's what what our ombuds people in the Foreign Service try to explain to the guy, the negative things which is on his board, on his sandwich board. You can imagine what that means in the society, and it was you, Renee, who said that, which isn't really prone to criticism. Pooh, the ombudsman has a much tougher job to tell the guy he's lazy, or the girl, she again has made 100 typing mistakes or so. You don't do that. But it's written on the thing. Everybody speaks about that, but you don't dare to do it because the American society, people would start crying or they would sue the guy or something. And in Germany, that is different. In Germany, you criticize them. My staff over the years, they hated me because I had this X-ray view. I looked at a piece of paper they presented to me, and after a tenth of a second, I saw all the spelling mistakes. And they were the ones most probably who asked our Indian friends to develop a software which created this spelling thing, so that this would be gone. So these were my two little additions to you, and I thank you for that. Now, what questions came out to your work. In general, it is a question which is also about labor unions. Are there labor unions in your job, the Swiss and the others, which make life a little bit more difficult for you? Or easy, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you very much. I would like to take that question first and also make a comment to what you said earlier. You know, the ICRC, of course, is a Swiss organization, so we are subject to Swiss law. And in particular, those who have the internationals are under Swiss contracts and the nationals under the respective local contracts. So we have to follow the legislation in those different countries. And that also then means if there have to be union members there involved, then that has to happen. In the United Nations, that was very different because we have our internal legal system, the internal justice system, and in that you have staff associations. Now, from my experience, the role of staff associations in the United Nations is completely underestimated. Often it doesn't work very well because individuals that are involved kind of don't make it very easy to work together. But there are other very, very good examples where it is actually in the DNA of an organization that they believe it is good to have well-working staff associations. Mm-hmm. And if I may say, UNICEF is one of those organizations. Mm-hmm. And they have very well-working staff associations at local, regional, and global level. And why do I say it also in the space of managing conflict and moving through change? If you have well-working staff associations, it makes it much easier to go through change because it is much more participatory, it is much more transparent, and there's higher level ownership. And I have seen in organizations where these staff associations don't work very well, and where a CEO says, don't mess with the head of the staff association, but keep the others far away, it was a huge problem. A comment on what you just said, Bernd, in terms of being on time or working more incremental. See, you sometimes think after over 30 years in an international space like me, working with colleagues from all around the world every day, speaking in different languages, that you have seen it all. 5 years ago, I started as an ombudsman for the UN funds and programs, organizations like UNICEF and UNDP, and I started together with another colleague. And we were both ombudsmen at the same level. I was told that I am heading the team, and she was told the same thing. And her name is Mam Diang, my twin sister. We have become twins because we saw immediately it will only work out if we work just like this together from day one. So over 5 years, we worked in everything together. We saw management together, we went on missions together, and it was true collaboration across cultures. However, it was not easy, not at all, not for her and not for me. I came into the office often because I wanted to open the computer, see what is going on, to deal with things. No, not with Mom. You have at least half an hour or an hour conversation about the day, what happened the day before, and so for me it was around writing analysis, writing something down, structure. She was in storytelling, and she said fascinating stories. We had a meeting, I said, Mom, hey, we have to go. Wait, we'll come, it will be the time, more event-driven, not time-driven. So I just want to say, in my own cultural learning, that experience was really a privilege. And I have worked in Africa, I have worked in other countries. And just to say how difficult it is also for those who have not been able to go through these processes. When I see now the thousands and hundreds of thousands of refugees arriving in Germany, and I'm thinking about the communities that are receiving refugees who have not had this international experience, who don't know the individuals by name, who just are told, you know, this is a threat and perhaps tomorrow you don't have your pension anymore or you will have to pay taxes for welcoming refugees. So at a certain stage I actually thought my place is not in Geneva with the International Committee of the Red Cross. I need to go back home to help as mediator and to organize a dialogue between Germans, those who have difficulties with those great numbers and those who want to welcome, plus between Germans and the local communities. And I'm still interested to follow this idea more, to see what are the structures in Germany that are promoting dialogue through conflict management tools, through mediation between those different cultures.
Thank you so much for this all. It gives me a chance to say something positive about KPMG Law. You see, proud sponsor. I know that you are also going into the community. You have your service a day and where you approach the community and help wherever you can, and the mediation aspect is something which at the moment is necessary in all the places where KPMG Law is present at the moment. And I'm sure you're already thinking of that. Just one last comment on what you said. I worked from 85 to 88 at the German UN mission in New York. And at my first meeting with the others, that was in the fringes of the General Assembly. We had a lot of meetings before that, in September to December. The meeting was set for 10 o'clock. I arrived at 10 sharp. And there were people, members from all over the then 150 countries. I was alone. I said, what? Okay, I said, I wait. It was 10 past 10. I was still alone. And then about 20 past 10, the first came, another Westerner. And I said, what's happening? Is the meeting being postponed? No, he said, you must be new. Yes. And he explained, he said, well, you know, this is the sum total of all the polychronies in the world. So the meeting started at 10 to 11. But a good diplomat also works on the basis, in every red there's a little green. You always find some positive. So the time from 10 to 10:45 for me in the future, after that, was great time for doing great things. And when you arrive at 10:45, we were still among the first. So polychromy has many advantages, but one has to know that that exists and that is the rule. And when you deal with people from different cultures which are not exactly like our culture. And another and last question at the moment on the writing side to you, Helmut. How does the ombuds function interface, if at all, with other dispute processes, mediation, arbitration, litigation? Well, thanks for the question.
I think one of the things, of course, an ombuds office works, you know, depending on what the needs are in an organization. So organizational contexts always are important. In my experience, and that's perhaps also because I'm a lawyer by education, it is at the center, I mean, of those mechanisms in the sense that the Ombuds Office is trying to connect those actors. When I arrived at the ICRC, I saw, for example, there was no information on the intranet, not even a grievances handbook. There was no document where an employee could go and say, this is where I go when I have a problem. Everything was kind of somewhere in the rules. And there was great discrimination vis-a-vis local colleagues, so that was even less visible. So I took it on me to get in contact with the staff association, with HR, with the legal counsel, to see how can we get that document, how can we get it better equipped to get people an idea where to go when there's a problem. So this is underway. But what is also illustrated is we call something that we are doing the same and mean different things. For example, as an ombudsman, I'm saying we are listening. The staff association told me we are also listening. So when I give them the list of what we do, they signed everything highlighted yellow, what they also do. It's the same words. So we now do something where we are trying to describe more to colleagues what actually is done. And what we're also promoting is the collaborative effort here. So it is not either or. If we feel it is better to go to the staff association for somebody, to go there to get some advice, we are even organizing meetings together for some of our visitors so that they have a space to talk to people and don't kind of get something from the ombudsperson and then when they see the legal person or the staff association later, they hear something else. So very close collaboration, and I think that is a key role and opportunity of the Ombuds Office to bring this together. Collaborative spaces, create spaces where colleagues talk together to work together for a solution.
Thank you. In the powers invested in me by the organizers, I am now changing the rules a tiny little bit because this is the last chance this morning you can, quorum publico, ask a question to Helmut. So if you want, you can shoot orally, and I will repeat it so it will be recorded anyway. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question about your function insofar as, let's say, the third, the fourth, the fifth employee comes to your office and complains about a management practice that is allegedly systemic, or a whistleblower comes in. To what extent are you empowered to investigate or to call for an investigation as opposed to conciliate?
The question was, in what way do you react to whistleblowers or people who come in and point out at problems which are systemic? Well,
yeah, I mean, one comment here, very important, organizational ombudsmen don't have investigative powers. Contrary to government ombudsman structures, they have that. So our organizations have their own investigative mechanisms. We also have a whistleblower protection policy. The Ombuds Office is not involved in that. However, we of course get often situations where a number of colleagues complain about an abusive behavior of a manager or perceived abusive behavior. So we are working with management and have had situations where that was possible to, again, mostly those people are known in organizations. So the perceived abusive people are known, but an organization doesn't know what to do, or they are so happy with the results that they don't address the behavior part. And here we have a possibility to work through with them on how to address it by protecting all of those who came to us. We don't even have to mention their names because the organization knows and basically is even happy if we can come in and help them to look at scenarios on how to basically put the mirror to that person and look at what is happening if it is not addressed. And we will hear more about that. It's just those cases illustrate at what high costs there are for the organization if it is not addressed. And the Ombuds Office can illustrate that. Not only financial costs, reputational costs, human costs. And then organizations, in our experience, open up. I have been part of meetings where, with regard to one specific person, top manager in one country, perception of abusive behavior, we suggested to organize a roundtable at headquarters without that person, but with everybody else who needed to be there. Legal counsel, head of HR, key people. And we said, we are not part of the decision making here, but what we want is that you agree that you have to talk. And we all agree, after a conversation, everybody agreed this cannot go on. And then we give some suggestions on how this can be dealt with. But then we leave the room for them to take a decision how to exactly move forward.
Unfortunately, sorry, later for the break. We have to continue now. At the very end, I would be grateful that you both give us a point. This is all under the heading of conflict prevention, what you have been saying. Maybe you have an example for conflict management or conflict resolution for which you could share with us at the very end of so you have the final word, both of you again. Now we switch to Renee. Renee, you mentioned a lot of specific examples of what is different. It's most fascinating. And think of the simple thing, the time difference. This is so simple but so important when you work with a company, and it's the same the other way around, Holger. You can say that when the bosses of American companies in Germany deal with their, or the workers deal with their headquarters here in the US, and vice versa, that was the one, and vice versa when the bosses of German companies deal with American workers here. So the time difference is a big issue. It can be your friend, by the way, if you work in California, they leave you alone. I love that for 3 years. Well, not always, but for a while. Details. Germans are crazy about details. I worked also in Japan. Actually, I had 2 postings in Japan. Talking about details, we Germans are nothing compared to the Japanese. I'll give you one example, and the cultural details. There was a big deal organized between a Japanese company and a German company, and I was present, and the thing ended with actually the Japanese infused a lot of money in that company, were supposed to be. And the German CEO, who had apparently not been prepared on the cultural difference, when he was offered one of the finest green teas which they had in their repertoire, he asked if he could have a sweetener. 2 days later, the deal was off. Believe me or not, you can really, if you want to, and they all, first of all, they didn't find it. Then finally, when they had it, the poor girl, oh, where's the sweetener? What's that? What's sweetener? So then, whoop, in the old times, in my time, there comes one top out, and all the Japanese were, oh, what a sacrilege. So it is so important. Another thing is that we mentioned that we Germans criticize mercilessly, and it starts in education. Parents are often taught by their parents and by friends and friends, Disziplинentzug ist die besonders schlimme Form von Liebesentzug. Got that? Not providing discipline to kids is an especially bad form of not giving love to kids. That's the German approach. Admittedly, it's watering down, but it still is in the back of the minds of many people. And of course, that continues. So when you criticize somebody in your company, you want to tell him something nicely, and you do it as a friendly gesture, and nothing else. It's not negative. Of course, it's supposed to be there that there should be better quality. And there's another saying in Germany: there's no shame in falling down, only in remaining lying down. And that means if you 10 times do the same mistake after you told the person not to do this mistake anymore, then that creates a problem, and which would need an ombudsman, I guess. But so that one I wanted to just tell you about the German thing. Let me introduce my friend, and he's the only official German in the room, Helge Jordan. Dr. Helge Jordan is the German consul, honorary consul for all of the beautiful state of Arizona, which now slowly becomes livable since the 1st of October, I think. But he's also there in summer, and Germans are tough. Here he sits, and he survived again another summer of 110 degrees most of the time. But it's fun. When you're there, you enjoy that. and Helge, he came from an environment, and I hope you will speak about that at a later occasion. I cannot be present anymore because I have to leave after this. I'm so sorry. About the issue of conflicts between recently acquired company in Phoenix, Arizona, in Scottsdale to be precise, and their German bosses. And all the cultural things which you mentioned came up. So maybe you can, at a given moment, follow that up. Now, René, the questions to you, and that's the last round, and then I also want you to say something, if you have an example, on conflict management and also on conflict resolution, if that exists. René, what evidence do you see of cultural when dealing with national cultural barriers? When dealing with national rather than international cultures. Must be a Texan who has asked this question. Go.
Well, if I understand the question right, and maybe I touched upon it in the presentation when I was talking about different organizational cultures. But within the US, obviously, you can have massive cultural differences just from one state to the next, or just think about the West Coast and the East Coast differences, or the Midwest, right? We all have stereotypes, and I always think stereotypes are not necessarily bad, because it's a complex world that we live in, and at least the stereotype gets you started as long as you keep an open mind to sort of make amends to what stereotypes you have when you're in the moment, right? But I think even within one country, within the same industry, you're going to experience culture differences that, if you don't address them, will grow into barriers. So the same blueprint culture management plan that I presented, an hour ago, applies to just managing, culture differences that are of organizational nature, that are of, coming from different cultures within the same country. So discovering what your culture problems are, and then sort of aligning on how you want to address them and what they should be in support of your strategy, in support of what you're trying to accomplish, and living it, right, with a long-term plan. I think that applies just the same, and you will find that, as I said before, even within the same country and within the same macro culture, I want to say, you are going to encounter a culture dimension to what it is that you're doing. There are simply no culture agnostic endeavors anymore.
In this context, this is a named question. Good. Veronique Fraser, where are you? Yes, good that you tell us. So she asked, so you can look into her.
Excellent.
How to use culture as a competitive advantage? That's a good one.
Well, I mean, that's obviously the holy grail, right? And I think if you think about your own organizations, there's a phrase that what doesn't measure doesn't get managed. And culture doesn't get measured, right? It's very difficult to say, because it's not one line item on the balance sheet, here's our cost due to culture, right? And when I showed you our t-shirt with the 3 launch dates that we had to postpone, it might not have been just because of culture, but culture probably played a part in it. Right? So it's very difficult to sort of manage it in a traditional way, because it simply doesn't appear with a number value next to it on your spreadsheet or on your balance sheet. So it's really evidential sort of or anecdotal evidence that gives away where you're hurting because of mismanaged culture, and it has the power to undermine your strategy. Mm-hmm. And I think the competitive advantage that you are working on with your strategy statement, with your mission statement, with your vision, is very much dependent on supporting culture. And if your culture is in detriment to what you're trying to accomplish from a business perspective, that's when you're going to start feeling the cost, right? So culture, you're only going to start feeling when it hurts you, right? When everything is going great, and perchance you have a culture in place that is supporting your strategy already, then you have the luxury of not needing to manage it. Apparently, it already aligns. Now, that obviously is not going to be the case most of the time, right? And you're going to start feeling the pain. And it's always almost like time freezes for a split second when you feel that a culture is violated, right? Cultural value norms are violated. So just one more anecdote. We were on one of the early calls, and it's the same example that I mentioned. Someone from the German side had set up a call, the meeting invite got forwarded, and someone else dialed in, announced their name. And the rude German said, in third person, "Who is he?" That person was on the phone. It didn't say, "Who are you? Why did you dial in?" Right? Didn't invite you. It was, asked of all the other attendants, "Who is he? Why is he on the call?" I mean, unbelievable. Crickets on the line. Nobody said anything for about 5 seconds, just stunned by how rude someone would ask in third person about someone else's presence, right? So in that moment, we felt culture norms were violated. Nobody knew how to deal with it, but it was obvious that that relationship was just destroyed from the get-go, right? And it will hurt the timeline, the budget, you name it, right? So we stop making the connection between that being taken aback because of a culture rule being violated and how it actually hits us. It's just an uncomfortable moment. You want to move on. You want to get back to business. And nobody sees that it actually just hit your bottom line. It just did. It just hit your bottom line, but nobody records it, right?
Thank you so much. We have been already 3 minutes on the polychrome phase of this morning. And I see the face of the monochrome boss of the event, Tom, and especially of Laurie is showing some clouds. But we started 10 minutes late, so we have to work that in. There is one last question to you, and then I ask you also. We start with Helmut to give a final word, but before that, Holger, come here and say quickly what you want. Just stand there. The last question was, what is your definition of culture? Does not every group of people create its own culture? Question mark.
It's an excellent question, and I already shared this earlier in the hallway. One professor of mine said, attempting to define culture is like trying to nail a pudding to the wall. It's not going to work. Everyone has their own definition of what it is. And it's true that even we, right here, 100 people that we are, probably have a set of culture rules right now. Bernd has mentioned many times how we go over time. I guess apparently we're all okay with it. You're still sitting here while the food is getting cold. But maybe you also feel like, hey, it's lunchtime, I'm hungry, my culture rules are getting violated. But you're buying into it because you don't want to be the one I call out as getting up and leaving the room. So we have some kind of culture norm already established, although we don't know each other. So that's certainly, that part of the question in that statement is certainly true. But I think there's a different aspect to culture in the business sense and in how I have been talking about it today, and that is, what is the culture that you want, right? It might not be the one that you already have as a group. That one that we have here today might not be the one that we actually need to get the most out of this event. And it's true for the business as well, right? Yeah, their culture will just be there, which is why it's such a great resource. It's not an obstacle. It's a resource that's waiting to be tapped, right? But you need to ask a different question, and that is, what is the culture, which are the cultural traits that we're really after, that we, consciously want to implement?
Thank you. Holger Siegwart, please.
Thank you, Brad. Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you on behalf of AmCham, the American Chamber of Commerce in Germany. For those of you who are not familiar with AmCham, with more than 3,000 members, we are the largest German-American trade organization and the largest American Chamber of Commerce in Europe. Our goal is to promote free trade and investment between the two countries, and obviously to be a voice for American businesses in Germany. So everything you will be discussing here today and tomorrow is certainly highly relevant to what we do. With that in mind, I would like to use this opportunity to invite you, your organizations, and your clients and customers to and encourage you to participate in the Hanover Trade Fair in Germany in April 2016. Why would you want to be there? The Hanover Trade Fair is actually the largest show for industrial technology in the entire world, and in 2016 the United States is the partner country, and the official motto will be Select US. And even the president, Mr. Obama, will be there in person and promote that motto. So you can be sure that this will generate a huge amount of attention, publicity, and certainly an extraordinary opportunity for you and your clients to showcase your products and services. So it would be wonderful if we could welcome you there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you a lot. That's really worth it. Thank you. And at that time of the year, Hanover all of a sudden becomes a cultured city. Okay. The final words are to our two distinguished panelists. I already say goodbye to you now. I'm not leaving before they finish. And then I head off for my bread job, which keeps me staying in Hotel California. And it's been a pleasure for me having met you all. I hope I see many of you again. And I thank you that you gave me this opportunity, Tom and Alexander. Well, what is your experience, if any, on conflict management and conflict resolution?
Conflict management and conflict resolution doesn't much have a chance in organizations that I have been working with if there's not a leading at the top. So those organizations where the CEOs do not see the benefit of conflict management, proactivity around that, there's little chance also for an ombuds office to get in there. So there the risk is really that an ombuds office risks to become more of a window dressing. And really from my experience, it is critically important that there is a walk of the talk at the top. However, we have lots of opportunities to make the business case around that for the top. And for the Ombuds Office, I feel that it works if we are also used as a strategic partner in that endeavor, while keeping, of course, all our principles of independence and neutrality in there. A last comment. I don't have any say in that. I just want to share with you how fantastic it would be if we have a similar event in Europe at a certain time in the near future, because that, for me, would also be a lot of bridging cultures. The conflict management space is very much driven by the North American practice. Yeah. And in Europe, without underestimating what is already happening there, I think there's a lot to learn in Europe, but also for here to learn from approaches in Europe. So it would really be good to do something also over there, and perhaps then 1 year here, 1 year over there. But I don't have any say in that. I'm just sharing that with you because I felt that very strongly while we have been discussing here this morning.
I even would know a nice town. It's a small town which had created great minds and also mediocre minds, Heidelberg. And in that city, there is a campus of a rather famous university from Malibu. Maybe they could think of that. Last word for you.
So culture management, conflict management, I want to stay in the culture space. What has really worked for us is to get things out in the open. Once people had, a safe zone and a feeling that I can really share what's bothering me, the awareness that generated got us halfway to solving our problems, right? People were now taking a second to assume positive intent of that 2,000-word email that I got, that 2,000 long email. And before getting frustrated, I was thinking, all right, so this is an email from Germany. What do you expect? Maybe I'll read it. He wasn't all bad when he wrote it, right? So just getting it out in the open, creating awareness was a huge part of managing the conflicts that we had. And as far as resolution, if you think of conflict as a fire and you throw water on it, how do you know that it's really out? People will gladly say, yes, I get it, we're over it. And a week later, it flames back up. I think, and I made this point before, give repeated discovery process, keep giving people the opportunity to come out and mention what's not working, create a very positive environment in that way, and especially cultivate what you've started in the very long term. And leadership support is absolutely essential. So I second what Helmut has said.
Back to the organizers. Thank you.
Well, I think, first of all, a big round of applause